Welcome to a Thursday night edition of The Sweat. I'm your host, Jessie Coffield. Lots to get to on today's show. Hockey, basketball, college football, just to name a few. But let's kick things off in the NFL. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich are here for NFL over or under. So will these Week 14 games hit the over or the under? Let's start with tonight's Thursday night football contest. Cowboys-Bears, 43.5 points. Jeff, you going over or under?
I'm going to go with the over here. I really do think this is going to be a bit of a shootout. You just have to look at these two defenses and what they've done. They've really let down in spots. And look, the Bears defense just has not been the Bears defense of last year. I mean, ever since the beginning of the season, even when they were healthy. And now they come into this game with a shoddy run defense and probably without Prince Amukamara to help shadow Amari Cooper, who is just lights out at home. I think this is a bad matchup for Chicago. But I do think the other factor here is both these offenses can really get off. I mean, Mitch Trubisky's playing better. It's a good matchup for Allen Robinson, who's played well most of the season. And like I said, Dak and Amari are just a different beast at home. I really like the over in this spot. I think this total is way too low.
Pierce, you liking the over here?
No, I'm on the upside. I like the under here. We give Dallas a lot of respect for a team that's only beaten bad teams. At the same time, the Bears get absolutely no respect for being the same thing, a team that only beats bad teams. The reality is they're both 6-6 teams, neither of which are very good. The better offense is on the road. The better defense is at home. I'm leaning towards this going under. I know that the Bears are not quite the defense that they were, but we give way too much respect to Zeke and to Dak Prescott. Look, they're a 6-6 team. They're fine, but Thursday night, I just don't see them putting up too many points tonight.
Yeah, and sorry there, I misspoke. It's Dallas is on the road, so it's a little bit of making my own argument, but I still do like the over in this spot.
Okay, all right, still sticking with the over. How about the game with the highest total on the slate? Chiefs-Patriots, 49 points. Pierce, over or under? We know this Pats defense is really good.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under here as well. This could be a preview of a playoff game, so you never know what these teams are going to show. Could we get some vanilla offenses or defenses? But then again, that's probably just us thinking way too much about what's going on. But as you mentioned, the Pats, number one defense at home. I would imagine they're going to bounce back a little bit here, try to put Patrick Mahomes in his place. And then New England's offense, they should bounce back as well. They'll probably win this game, and Tom Brady will play well. But this is not a star-studded offense. They do not have half of the receivers they started the season with, and it's starting to show. Tom Brady is not quite the quarterback. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and say that he's getting old or washed up yet, but he does look a step behind, at least when he has average receivers to throw to. The offensive line is weak. I don't think this goes over. They're going to stay under the total.
Jeff, do you agree it's going to go under 49 points?
Yeah, no, Pierce and I are in agreement with this one. I mean, even just looking at the Patriots season, how it's gone, 2 games have gone over this total. One, they got blown out at Baltimore, and they hit way over 50. Then the other one was last week, where they hit this total over the total by 1 point. And that was because Tom Brady had some magic in garbage time. Without that, they easily stay under 49 points. I don't really see a scenario here where these two teams get in a shootout. The Patriots offense just isn't functioning at a high enough level. The Chiefs can't run the ball, which just means that the Patriots, who have a solid pass rush and solid secondary, just can be able to put more pressure on Patrick Mahomes. I do feel like, too, with it being a road game, if Kansas City gets up, they're probably just going to try and slow it down a bit. I'd be kind of shocked, to be honest, if they hit 50 points, or even with Mahomes and the great Kansas City offense. I just feel like the New England defense is too stout for them to put up too many points. I'll take the under.
Jeff, the Seahawks-Rams game on Sunday night is projected to hit 47.5 points. You want to go over or under on this one?
I'm going to take the under on this one, too. I do feel like the Rams defense it's just a little bit better than we've seen in spots this year. They've been blown out. Yes, they've given up some bad games, but you take out a couple really just sort of like what the WTF performances, basically, and they're good. I mean, you saw it last week against the Arizona Cardinals. And look, Seattle Seahawks, they're not exactly a high-paced offense. They will try and run the ball here. I do think on the road, this is going to be a game where it just gets slowed down a little bit. The LA Rams are going to try and just make this a little bit uglier, slow down the run, make it a close game. And I just don't feel like either of these teams want to play up pace. So, again, 47 points, all things considered, especially with how on and off the Rams offense has been. I'll take the under here, too.
All right, Pierce, what are you doing?
I'm with Jeff here. I'm going to take the under. We've seen both these teams want to commit to the run, especially Seattle. Seattle doesn't have the defense that they've had in the past, and one of the ways they can counter that is by staying on offense, by pounding the ball on the ground. I can see the Rams doing the same thing, slowing the game down, not putting a lot of points on the board. The big fear, though, is Russell Wilson has one of those games like he did earlier this season against the Rams where he threw 4 touchdown passes. That's always going to be a concern, but as Jeff said, the Rams defense is pretty good. You got to go back to week 16 is last time, well, other than the game against the Ravens, but you don't count those games. You just dismiss any matchup against the Ravens. But you go back to week 6 is the last time they gave up more than 17 points. Seattle's defense isn't as good as they used to be, but, Jared Goff and Todd Gurley are not the 2018 version either, and they're not playing the Cardinals again this week. So I don't expect a giant offensive explosion from the Rams either. I would go with the under here.
All right, Pierce, Colts, Bucks, 47, over or under on that one?
I'm going to go with the under here. It's always kind of hard to figure out what the Colts are going to do, but it's never hard to figure out what the Bucks are going to do. Until last week, they had went over 9 weeks in a row, and it took basically a thrown away half by Jeff's boy Nick Foles to get under the under. If Nick Foles is, halfway decent quarterback, that would be the 10th time Tampa Bay goes over. Both these offenses and defense kind of neutralize. You got one team that wants to run the ball in Indianapolis against a Tampa team that is really good against the run. You've got the reverse in play for Tampa, but ultimately it just comes down to the fact that Tampa gives up the most points. They go over all the time. You've got to take the over in every Tampa game.
Jeff, do you agree? You got to take the over?
I think Pierce misspoke there at the start. I think he said under, but he meant over. So I'm going with the over here too. I think it makes sense. Plus, you look at this time of the year. You got bad weather to where you shouldn't have to worry about the weather in Miami here. Both these teams play like a little bit higher pace. Tampa's a top 5 team for pace of play, and Indy's not too bad either. They're at least average in terms of that. So even without T.Y. Hilton, he's probably not going to be there. I feel like the Colts are going to get back Paris Campbell. They still have Zach Pascal. Against the secondary of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that should still be enough, and Jack Doyle as well. So I feel like the matchup is pretty good, too, for a Mike Evans explosion game. The Colts secondary has not been great. They've actually been giving up some points left and right over the past few weeks. A couple bad losses for the Colts, too. I think this one's going to go over quite easily.
All right, let's get to the lowest total on the slate. Bengals-Browns, 41 points here. Where are you going, Jeff?
Going under, for sure. I think this one's an easy under. Look, Cleveland is... They are what they are. The nice thing about Cleveland in this match, but one reason that I do like the under is, their offense is terrible. Their offense is terrible in the red zone. They don't really move the ball well outside of like one scripted drive per game. But then they also have a pretty solid defense, even with injuries up front. And the defense doesn't even have to be that good this week because they're going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, who never score as well. So all things considered, I think the best unit in this game is probably still the Browns defense. And the Cincinnati Bengals defense has been playing well, too. They got 7 sacks over the last 2 games, which is their most in a 2-game period coming in. They've created a few turnovers. I think that could be a bit of a story, too, how effective Cincinnati is against the Cleveland offense. So I think you'll see Cincinnati, keep this game close, and I think you're going to see under 41 for sure.
Pierce, do you want to go under on this one?
Yeah, look, I just can't see any reason to take the over here. Every narrative, every statistic says go with the under in this situation. The narratives are that the Bengals got their 1 win, so now they can phone in the rest of the season, make sure they secure the bag and get the number 1 draft pick. The Browns have all kinds of issues, and you've got Odell Beckham, who said today that he basically wants out of Cleveland. Big surprise that was coming. Both teams are basically dumpster fires. And then statistically, the Bengals score the fewest points. They score the fewest points on the road. The Browns could have a good game against a Bengals team that's phoning it in. But if the Bengals score 0 or 10 points, this thing still stays under.
All right, fun note before we go, guys. Over the last 4 seasons, an opposing fantasy player has recorded a top 10 fantasy performance when playing a team that made a head coaching change the week prior. So the Panthers fired Ron Rivera this week. They're playing at Atlanta. Anyone on the Falcons in line for a big week, Pierce?
Yeah, I'm going to resist the urge to be cute. I'm just going to play what the numbers say, and that's you play running backs against Carolina because they're last in DVOA. So even though Devontae Freeman hasn't really been good this year, it's hard to resist the urge to play him, especially at his price.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I do get the Freeman call. The problem with him is they do like to work in like these other guys, these other scrubs they have. Brian Hill, Barner gets snaps now. Like that's what worries me about Freeman. And I was going to go there too, but I think the easy play is actually to go to wide receiver. And it kind of comes down to whether Julio Jones is healthy. I'm just going to go with Calvin Ridley, who basically already put up a top 10 performance against Carolina the last time they played. Carolina's secondary has been getting burned left and right. They've allowed, I think it's the most, let me see here, the receptions or yards. It's the second most receptions to opposing wide receivers so far in the league. So, I mean, it's a great spot for Calvin Ridley. He like I said, he's already performed once well against this team. And with Julio Jones a little bit banged up, I'll take Ridley here.
All right, thanks, guys. Going to have you back in the last segment to get your Showdown picks for tonight. And speaking of Showdown picks, I'll get our basketball panels next.
What's going on? I'm Carolyn Azak here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Well, LeBron James lit up Twitter Wednesday night, but it wasn't because of his performance. LBJ decided to walk it out in Utah, taking 3.5 steps across half court for what should have been an obvious travel call. Fortunately for him, the refs missed it. Apparently, the King got distracted when he saw his teammate KCP collide with the Jazz's Donovan Mitchell on the court. LeBron said it was probably one of the worst things I've ever done in my career. It didn't really matter. LeBron and the Lakers routed the Jazz 121-96 as they continue to walk all over their competition. LA is number 1 in the Western Conference. They've won 12 of their last 13 games, and LeBron has been there for every one of them. In the age of load management, LeBron is showing no signs of slowing down in his 16th season. He eclipsed over 25 minutes in each of his last 10 games and produced over 40 fantasy points in each as well. Fantasy owners can continue to count on him as one of the most reliable players in the league.
It's time to get our panel's picks for tonight's NBA Showdown contest between the Sixers and Wizards. Let's bring in said panel. We got Karin Phillips, senior columnist for the Shadow League, plus RotoWire's Alex Barutha and Nick Whalen. Karin, start us off. Who is your captain pick tonight?
Going with Bradley Beal. I know we were talking about him last time he was on here, I think on Tuesday, about how he's the only thing, the Wizards have in terms of offense or star power or anything, John Wall being out this season. So I'm going with the safe bet. I like to always save money. So give me Bradley Beal, even though it's probably not going to save me any money tonight picking him.
Saving money and spending it on your wardrobe. Loving the jacket. All right, Alex, your captain, please.
Nothing too surprising. I'm going Joel Embiid here. I think with Thomas Bryant out for the Wizards, they're just not going to have the size inside to deal with Embiid. And I mean, there is always the possibility of a blowout, but at the same time, Joel Embiid could put up 60, 70, 80, DraftKings points in 25 minutes. So it really just comes down to me, the Wizards being undersized. And Coach Brett Brown said the other day they want to work Embiid more in the post, give him more touches, try to force double teams and pass out, stuff like that. So I'm just going to bank on that coming to fruition.
Nick, who you going with?
I like Embiid tonight as well. Not going to put him in my captain spot. I'm going to go stick with the Philadelphia 76ers and go with Tobias Harris. He's going up against the worst defense in the league in the Washington Wizards, a team that weirdly is still top 5 in offense. They play really quickly. I think there's going to be a lot of possessions in this game, and I just like what Tobias Harris has done recently. 5 straight games of at least 15 field goal attempts. Took 23 shots the other night against a slow-paced Jazz team that plays good defense. I think this could be a night, like Alex said, where Embiid, goes nuts in 20, 25 minutes. But Tobias Harris has kind of been the guy whose minutes, regardless of who the opponent has been, have been pretty insulated. He's usually been in that 33, 36-minute range. Maybe that changes if this game gets out of hand, but he's been really dependable lately, and I'm going with Tobias Harris at the captain spot.
All right, Alex, who are you going to stack with your captain, Joel Embiid?
I am going Tobias Harris, but it is because with Josh Richardson out for the 76ers, I think Harris sees more usage. And, Joel Embiid, NBA.com has passing tracking stats. Embiid passes to Harris 7 times a game for 2.5 shots. So if they really are going to throw the ball in the post to Embiid, like Coach Brown says they will, I think a lot of passes will be kickouts to 3. Harris shooting the ball there. So I think they could play off each other a lot this game. And I think stacking them for that reason makes sense.
Nick, if you tell me you're stacking Embiid with Tobias Harris, I'm going to know you two have been colluding.
Well, in that case, I will pass then.
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. Tell me why, if you have anything to add.
Well, I swear we're not colluding. We really aren't. But it's a 4-game slate. We're talking about a single-game showdown. No, I have Joel Embiid. I don't want to spend up and put him at captain, but I want him in my lineup because the Wizards still just don't have any options at center. Thomas Bryant, of course, is still on the shelf, as he will be for the next couple of weeks. The good news for Washington is they do get Mo Wagner back tonight. They do get Jan Mahimi. They say Mahimi's going to be limited. He's basically always limited, even when he's healthy. But at least there's a body maybe to throw at Embiid. Either way, I think he goes, for one of his better per minute fantasy nights of the season. He'll primarily be defended by Wagner and Rui Hachimura. So a first-year guy and a second-year guy, still both figuring it out. Embiid's been shaky this season. He's been a little bit more unreliable than he has been in the past, but it's just hard to imagine him not having a huge game against this Washington front court.
All right, Karin, who are you stacking with Bradley Beal?
Embiid. But you see, I was smart and I picked the person from each team because I didn't want teammates battling out. But yeah, like if I was either going to take Embiid with the captain's pick or Bill, I just flipped a coin and took Bill with the captain's spot and just had to stack him with Embiid because if you look at this, like who else are you going to go to in this slate for this game? So just make this a simple one and just give me the big man who doesn't really like to be around the rim.
All righty, where can we find some value here, Nick?
Well, I was going to go with Jordan McRae, and then about an hour and a half ago, he was ruled out for a couple of weeks with a finger injury, so he's on the shelf. I really don't love a lot of the value plays for either team. I mean, Philly is so top-heavy. We kind of knew that going in. They rely so heavily on their top 4 or 5. No Josh Richardson tonight. We'll see how that affects things, but I guess I'll go with Troy Brown, second-year guy out of Oregon, a lottery pick in 2018. He's been a little bit disappointing so far. We kind of figured he might be one of those bad team, good stats guys, still coming off the bench behind Isaac Bonga, but he's the better fantasy option of the two. He is averaging more than 20 DraftKings points over his last 3 games. And the fact that McRae is not playing, that should free up around 20 minutes. And my hope is that some of those are deferred to Troy Brown.
Karin, you love value. Where are you going?
I do. I love to save money. But with this slate, there's nobody that I really want in the area that I can save me money. So in terms of the word value, we're going to use this lightly here. Only thing I could pick up, and I tried to pick someone from each team, was Mo Wagner and probably Mike Scott. And even though I know he might not have a value price next to him, when you just look at that roster, it's like, who else are you going to pick? So Scott for Philly and Wagner for the Wizards. I'm reaching here. I know it.
Alex, what about you? Where are you going for value?
I do like Wagner. I mean, he really isn't like much of a value like Karin alluded to, but I mean, he's basically 22 and 10 per 36 minutes, 1.3 DraftKings points with Thomas Bryant off the court. He shoots threes. You'll get points there. I mean, Wagner could easily play 40 minutes tonight, assuming he doesn't foul out. The only players that I had any confidence in that I think, some confidence in were Korkmaz and Thibault, who were like way down on the list. And at that point, you're kind of banking on more of a blowout potential where Korkmaz shoots like 15 times, or maybe Thibault can rack up like a combined 8 steals and blocks. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's the lead on that end of the floor. So those were the 3 guys that I was really looking at.
Karin, who are you totally fading tonight? Somebody you want to stay away from?
Well, it might seem like a little mean, but it's Isaiah Thomas, just for the simple fact that, I don't know what that guy's career is going to be, and with not just with the Wizards, but just with anyone. And I know he's having a little resurgence, and I know that guy has been through some tough stuff off the court, but just in terms of basketball sense, I just always felt like Boston was the perfect place for him, which is why it's been a little hard for him to find a home. And I know things are a little better, like I said, in the nation's capital, but I would just stay away from that all the time.
Okay, Alex, stay away spot for you.
I'm kind of leaning Al Horford here. We're kind of staying with like that potential blowout mentality. I mean, Horford should not have to play 30 minutes in this game. He should probably only have to play about 20 minutes in this game for the 76ers to come away with a win. And really, I just think the minutes floor for him is really low in this particular matchup. And he's at a solid price, and I understand some people are going to go contrarian and put him in the captain spot, but I would just rather avoid him.
All right, Nick, who are you staying away from?
For me, I think it's Rui Hachimura. I like the argument that he'll probably play a lot of minutes, but he's going up against not one, but two elite post defenders in Al Horford and Joel Embiid. There's probably a case to be made that if this game gets out of hand, maybe he stays in the game as a rookie and can pile up some garbage time stats. But I'm still staying away. I think the ownership will be high, and I think the fact that both Wagner and Mahinmi are back, even if they're limited, that takes away a little bit of the upside, because these last couple of games, especially the last game without Thomas Bryant, they basically had no choice but to play Hachimura for like 38 minutes. And I think, if he's getting destroyed by Embiid and Horford and is in foul trouble, at least they don't have to go to that extreme at this point. So I think the upside is just a little bit lower tonight for Hachimura than it was in that first game without Thomas Bryant.
Good stuff, guys. As always, up next, Chris Wassel will break down tonight's hockey slate. And right now, you get to watch part of my interview from earlier this week with Matt Chatham. What's one matchup coming up in this game that you have your eye on? Maybe something the Patriots are looking to exploit against this, Chiefs team. Like, what are you thinking?
Well, I think one of the big things we saw in Houston that the Chiefs will be taking a hard look at is they won on verticals, right? So they won on, I believe it was the Fuller route where they went back at Jonathan Jones a couple plays in a row. Maybe it was Kenny Stills, whichever it was, but they're going downfield a little bit. And we know the Chiefs to be a heavy downfield team. Tyreek Hill is obviously one of them, Hardeman. Some of these guys, they're just shot players. They're really good if you either get the ball in their hands and have an explosive player or shoot it down the field. I look at that kind of stuff and say, okay, the Chiefs are going to know what sort of their best MO, and they're going to watch that. And I think the Patriots will play a little more on top of things because the big play killed them in that game. So that saying, you take that stuff off the field and say, I think they'll address it a different way. My attention comes back to the middle field. It's Travis Kelce talk. So how are they going to account for the tight end? Because I know the Patriots are not going to want to let those shot plays happen. Well, that brings the attention to me more back to the intermediate part of the field. And can Patrick Chung have a nice matchup game against him, or do they let Jamie Collins get more involved in that with his athleticism, or do they bring Jonathan Jones, who in the playoff game had a role there with him as well? There's just a lot of different ways to go about it, and Kelce is he's not a tight end. He's a wide receiver. So how they account for him will, I think, be kind of interesting to watch, because I think the other things can be accounted for by scheme. Him, not so much. You just have to win a one-on-one.
Well, Matt, we asked you a little bit about your hobbies before this interview, and we know that you're into smoking food. It's like your thing. You're really into it. It's your thing. It's now your thing. We're telling everyone it's your thing. Well, if you're in charge of the tailgate, right, like, what are you serving everybody?
Okay, so the way to ace a tailgate here, in my view, this is, cancel your appointments.
Okay.
But the big thing is you still have to have a good time, right? So if you're doing really heavy cooking in a pregame thing, 3-4 hours out, everyone's drinking, everyone's having a good time, trying to get ready for the game, you don't want to have heavy game day prep. So I would actually heavily advocate smoking chowder. And I know it's a little bizarre, right? So the reason I like that is I like to come to the tailgate with things that can be heated, that can be sort of on-site prep, but you're not out there, having to do a 12-hour smoke on a brisket, because that's crazy. That would essentially have to be done the day prior. Think about chowder, and think about smoking all the ingredients in the chowder. Think about making it with the cream that you normally would, the stuff that's very popular up here in the Northeast to do it as a heavy cream-based thing, and use several sticks of smoked butter. You can cold smoke butter, which takes on the alder, takes on the oak, takes on whatever wood you're using. Use that in your chowder. Smoke the bacon, smoke the potatoes, smoke the veggie fill, everything. Smoked chowder with your beers, and then you do the basics and wings and other nonsense like that. But you'll knock people out. They'll just be on the floor and ready to roll.
And you can just,
that's the way to go.
Serve it up.
It's ladling.
Easy.
It's not a burger. It's just a cup of soup. And you know what? There's another added in here. We're late in the season here in New England, so you're probably cold. You're standing out there, and this is hot lava. Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah,
because often the guy who is the grill master, it's like you don't look like you're having a good time. No, you're really busy
out there doing not all that. This is I've made it. I did all the prep in advance. I come here, we reheat it on a Bunsen or whatever, and you're ready to roll.
Well, when I think of smoking food, I think of smoked meats, right? Yeah. But it sounds like you can smoke anything. You got some chowder out there. So what's one thing that maybe you've had in the back of your mind, something that you've wanted to smoke before but you haven't?
I smoke just about everything, but I love smoking cheeses. I love smoking logs of cured meats like pepperonis and different things like that. I think one of the things that's sort of like the Kilimanjaro or whatever for people that smoke food is doing a whole hog. And I've never done that. And honestly, people that are really into the smoking food don't love smoking the whole hog because there's parts that should be done at different times and different temperatures, and when you do the whole hog, you kind of just blast through it. So not all of it gets done as it would best be done, but I think the whole hog would kind of be the way to go.
Yeah.
I've never tried it, and it's sort of, again, it's your the mountain to climb kind of thing.
Yeah, well, if you're going to do that, you can always invite us. Like, there's a lot of food to be eaten. But
food.
if you were going to open up a smokehouse restaurant, like you're just doing it, what would you name it? And which NFL player currently playing would you have be the spokesperson?
Okay, so you did. This is a question I was given in advance. So I actually I got a moment to think about this one. So, we're in New England, so we're not in Carolina, we're not in Kansas City, we're not in Texas. So I think a lot of the smoke names have sort of been stolen, quite frankly. I don't want to infringe here. I was thinking we're sort of a C-word kind of place. Maybe Smoke on the Water. And
I like that.
And what's the next line?
I don't know.
Fire in the sky.
But I like it.
It's, you smoke on the way. Anyway, so I just, there's something to that is kind of regional, and it could maybe work. My fear would be on a search if someone's already done that. But, we might have to roll with it. Now, who would be the NFL spokesman?
Yeah, that's the question.
Well, we're Northeast. We'll kind of roll with that. I don't know what Vince Wilfork's going on this day, but he's big into the smoking of foods himself. So maybe Vince with a little Smoke on the Water endorsement would be helpful.
Yeah. The one and only Chris Wassel of Awesemo.com is here to break down tonight's 9-game hockey slate. You know the drill, NHL opening faceoff picked between these two similarly priced players on tonight's slate. So at center, there's some of the top priced guys you would expect leading the way in salary, but we're looking under $7K. Boston's David Krejci in at $6,800 and subbing on the top line with Patrice Bergeron out, or Tampa's Braden Point at $6,600. Who do you like, Chris?
I like Braden Point tonight just because of the matchup. Look, Minnesota, Jarrett Spurgeon broke his hand. He's going to be out for several weeks. That leaves Minnesota, who's already kind of thin on defense, a little bit thinner. They're one of those teams that is among the bottom 5 in DFS and giving up points to centers. There's a couple others that we'll get to momentarily. But just for that matchup alone and the fact that Point will see some time with the very hot Nikita Kucherov, by the way, makes Point a much more compelling play tonight than even David Krejci.
All right, on the wing, do you just have to go with David Pastrnak at $8,400, or could you pay down in the same game and look at Patrick Kane at just $6,900?
I'd love to look at Kane, but I do know that at least sometime this morning he got dinged up in practice. He is going to play. It didn't seem like it was much of an issue, but anytime I hear the word player got dinged up in practice, there's a little bit of pause in me. So I tend to prefer my pasta al dente. So I'm going to go with Mr. Pastrnak tonight, simply because look, I mean the guy is on fire still. He could do the 50 and 50. I know people talked about it already, but the fact that he has 24 goals already just speaks to what he can do. And even if he doesn't get you that, he's at least going to get you the shot bonus, and he might get you an assist or two tonight.
All right, on the blue line, Montreal's Shea Weber has double-digit fantasy points in 6 straight games and is $6,500 versus Colorado. Do you stick with the hot hand, or would you like to save some cash and try someone like Rangers D-man Jacob Trouba, who has double-digit points in 3 straight and is $5,700 versus Columbus?
Trouba's been really good, but there's some concern with that Rangers Blue Jackets game that it could be lower scoring than expected. Whereas Montreal and Colorado, I mean, we got. You have basically the battle of the sludge. You have basically 2 backup goaltenders, including the debut of Caden Primo. Look, Colorado is giving up the fourth most points in DFS to defensemen. Shea Weber's coming in with a nice floor already and 10+ points in his last 6. It's kind of like Nathan McKinnon last night being set up against Toronto, and even though for Nathan McKinnon having a below-average performance is probably your top performance for everyone else, you have to still side with Weber tonight.
All right, in net, Semyon Varlamov has stopped 60 of 61 shots in his last 2 outings for the Islanders. Is he worth a $7,900 price tag at home versus Vegas, or would you look in the same price range and choose the very consistent Darcy Kuemper, who's $7,500 with the Coyotes on the road in Philly? Or is there even another goalie that you really like on the slate?
As crazy as this sounds, there's actually a couple goalies. Well, Varlamov's not bad, but I'm interested to see what a guy like Brian Elliott does tonight for Philadelphia. Now, look, Elliott can inevitably get hurt like the rest of Philadelphia's goaltending. That's something that unfortunately happens often to goalies not named Carter Hart. Now, that's one thing. But for me, Varlamov against the Vegas team, who, by the way, should be getting if he's not playing tonight, I didn't get to see it really fast. Marc-Andre Fleury. It's one of the Islanders set up well tonight, at least. They set up very well against Vegas, unlike, say, like the Devils, who didn't at all. But the Islanders do set up. They play more of a containment game. They will give up their shots, and that'll be good for Varlamov, because Varlamov might see 30 to 35 shots tonight. And if he can perform well enough, then that's worth more points than what you may get, say, from Kuemper or even an Elliott tonight. Because, look, Philly's one of those stingy teams at home. They will give up around 29 shots a game. And we've seen what Arizona can do at times with Kuemper in net. They give up 29.8 shots. So if I'm looking at this from a save standpoint, I actually have to side with Semyon Varlamov at just under 8K.
All right, Chris, slate approved pick time. Who is your lock on tonight's 9-game slate?
Well, I kind of hit it the other night,
Kucherov,
just barely, because I got bailed out by that that early McKinnon goal, and then he went and only had 2 shots on goal. So tonight, of course, it is none other than Nikita Kucherov. Kucherov has 18 points in his last 10 games. It is the old Nikita Kucherov that we saw last year. It was kind of nice. Also, for those that don't know, Kucherov's shot output is up by about a third from what it was at the start of the season. It's clear he was hurt more than we were previously led on to. So the fact that he's averaging almost 3.5 shots on goal a game in his last 9 games, very encouraging. The fact that he's up at almost 2 points a game in his last 9 games, even more so. He's my slate-approved lock.
Rolling with Nikita Kucherov. All right, thank you, Chris. NBA odds, NFL Showdown picks, and more is on the way after this week's edition of Levitan's Leverage.
We are ready for the 4th quarter of the NFL's regular season. We're still going strong. Adam Kaufman, Adam Levitan, and this is Levitan's Leverage. Levy, I know you don't like Thanksgiving. I don't quite understand why, but I know you don't. Still, we're thankful for your picks because Ezekiel Elliott, Anthony Miller, and Russell Gage, they all performed well on the holiday slate last week. Now, just don't go cold in December, all right?
All right, I'll try.
All right, let's see what you got. We'll start with Alvin Kamara, 7K Sunday, home against the Niners. San Francisco's defense is solid, but not against running backs, so that's important here. Is that why you're expecting a bounce back from the Saints back?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to shy away from Alvin Kamara just because of the matchup. I think the way that the 49ers play defense is they force you to throw short. And really, that's what makes Alvin Kamara so valuable on DraftKings. When you're racking up 9, 10, 11 very short targets with a really high catch rate, you start to get a lot of points piled up, and you have upside for a lot more. Alvin Kamara has only scored a touchdown in 1 game all year. I think there's some regression there. So I'm not shying away from the matchup maybe as much as other people, particularly since DraftKings lowered his price to $7,000.
Yeah, to that point, Kamara has not scored since week 3, but Devontae Adams, 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. He is the 3rd most expensive receiver on the slate at 8K. His Packers home to host the lowly Redskins. Adams is averaging about 22 fantasy points his last 3 games. He's playing really well. It's part of the reason why, unlike Kamara, his salary has jumped $1,000. Doesn't scare you off, though?
Yeah, jumped $1,000, but still underpriced, I think, particularly for this matchup against the Redskins. And some people might have sticker shock on Devontae Adams. I think you can pencil in 10, 11 targets easily. And for someone with his talent against this secondary, that's just a total print fest. I mean, Devontae Adams is fully healthy off of his toe, is the clear red zone option for Aaron Rodgers in a game where I think the Packers have a chance to score the most touchdowns on the slate. So, yeah, I think I would go Adams slightly over Michael Thomas on this slate.
Last one I find pretty interesting here. A guy who has been disappointing fantasy users most of the season. That's Odell Beckham Jr. That's why you can get the Browns wide out really on the cheap at home. 6,300 versus the Bengals. OBJ, he has a groin issue. His QB Baker Mayfield, a hand injury. Why even go near this?
Yeah, well, maybe my priors are too strong on Odell Beckham. He's certainly had a rough year, been outplayed by Jarvis Landry. However, in good matchups like we've seen him take advantage of recently, I mean, he had a good game against the Dolphins, and I think this is a very good matchup for him against the Bengals. In these kind of good matchups, I think they have chances to get Odell Beckham going. We have a little bit of a squeaky wheel narrative, and just his talent versus what's going on in the Bengals secondary talent, I think is just too much to overcome. But really, it's just a price thing. I mean, 6,300 for a number one receiver, seeing his kind of usage at his talent level, I think is just too cheap.
If not now, when for OBJ? Adam Levitan, thank you, sir.
All right, good luck.
Always a pleasure to have Ben Rasa of Awesemo.com here, and it's especially exciting because we're looking at some of the top matchups in college football's championship week. So Ben, let's start with the Big 12 championship. It's number 7 Baylor and number 6 Oklahoma. The Sooners are favored by 9.5. Can they cover?
I think so. These teams met. Baylor had them beyond on the ropes. Somehow Oklahoma survived. I don't think we see a game like that. I think they've hit their stride. Jalen Hurts, they were impressive against Oklahoma State last week. And although Baylor finds a way to stay in it, I think ultimately Oklahoma will win by double digits.
All right, Ben, the ACC championship features number 23 Virginia and number 3 Clemson. The Tigers are favored by 28. Is this another Clemson blowout?
Man, it's hard to say no, because I really can't give you a reason of how Virginia hangs in the game. You know, they have a good quarterback in Perkins. I like him. But Clemson, you know, they had that one, I don't want to say it's a slip up because they won the game against North Carolina, but since then they've dominated everybody. So balanced with Lawrence and ETN and the defense hitting their stride. That is a lot of points, but honestly, I don't know how you don't lay them at this point. I see them winning going away once again.
In the Big Ten championship, number 8 Wisconsin is a 16.5-point underdog facing number 1 Ohio State. Does Wisconsin stand a chance here?
I think they do. You know, like most of these are matchups we've already seen. They went to Columbus. They got blown out. It was in the rain. And Wisconsin's just not a team that's built to really come back. They need to establish the run early with Jonathan Taylor. If they can do that, I think they hang in the game. Not saying they win outright by any stretch, but I think they have a much better showing this time around. And I'll take the 16.5 against Ohio State.
All right, Ben, let's talk about the SEC championship. Number 4 Georgia and number 2 LSU. LSU is favored by 7. Can Georgia win outright?
They definitely can. You know, they control their destiny. They win, they're in. They need Swift back. That's going to be a key. They need Fromm to obviously try to keep pace with Burrow. They have the better defense. I don't think anyone questions that. It's just going to be a matter of how many points can Georgia put up. Ultimately, I think that Burrow and LSU's offense will find enough to break them down late. But there is no doubt that Georgia is a quality team and one that won't be remotely intimidated by LSU.
Thank you, Ben. Exciting stuff. NBA is next, but first on Saturday, undefeated middleweight world champion Jermall Charlo defends his WBC 160-pound title against highly ranked contender Dennis Hogan at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And live on Showtime, here's a preview.
Jermall Charlo says he wants to be the king of the jungle. There's no way you can tame a lion. And that's me. And that's me. The power is for real. And the entire sport of boxing is hearing Charlo's roar. What? He is the king of this jungle. Lions only, baby. Jermall Charlo versus Dennis Hogan for the middleweight championship on Showtime.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Taryn Azak, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. We have recently seen an uptick in the usage for Todd Gurley, and Sean McVay has one lovely reason for it. Me not being an idiot, declared the Rams head coach. And because of McVay not being an idiot, it is looking like he has unlocked the formula for the Rams to pull off dubs and reignite the 2018 version of their offense. The All-Pro running back ran for 95 yards and a touchdown on 19 carries in Sunday's win over the Cardinals. In Week 11, he racked up 97 yards on 25 carries against the Bears, both games resulting in wins. Fantasy owners can feel good about Gurley's usage going forward, with McVay seemingly committed to giving him more touches. The Georgia product has yet to rush for 100 yards in a game this season, but Sunday night against the Seahawks could be the perfect time. Gurley had one of his best games earlier this year against Seattle in Week 5, scoring 2 touchdowns and racking up over 19 DraftKings fantasy points.
Our NBA panel is back for the final time this evening. Here's Karin Phillips, senior columnist at the Shadow League, and RotoWire's Alex Barutha and Nick Whalen. This is NBA What Are the Odds, where we take a look at some of the more interesting bets available on the DK Sportsbook for tonight's 3-game NBA slate. Karin, the Knicks have lost 7 in a row and are 9-point underdogs to Denver at MSG. Can the Knicks cover, or are they destined for another big loss?
Of course they're going to lose. Like, as long as James Dolan is in control of New York, it's all doom and glory. This roster doesn't make sense. They're trying to fire the coach. The front office is in shambles. I feel really bad for RJ Barrett and Kevin Knox and some of the young guys and Alonzo Trier who are just there because they just wanted to be in the NBA and got drafted, but they got drafted to this place. Stay away from the Knicks.
Alex, you staying away from the Knicks, destined for another loss here?
I would say so. I mean, I think, they're the only way I would probably bet on the Knicks here to cover the spread is maybe win up to 10, just because that's such a big number at home. But at the same time, like, what reason do you have to have any confidence in the Knicks? And, Nikola Jokic hasn't even been playing that well. I mean, this is an opportunity for him. If this is a get right spot for him, this could be a complete blowout. I know Jamal Murray's dealing with an illness, but he's probably going to play. As much as you want to take the home underdog, it's just, it doesn't feel like the right spot here.
Nick, do you agree with these guys?
I do. Denver's lost 2 straight. I think it absolutely could be a get right spot. I mean, that's basically what the Knicks have been for every team except for the Dallas Mavericks this year. I will say, if you're looking at the spread, I mean, Denver has not really been the well-oiled machine that it was for 80% of last season. It's been a little bit more difficult. Like Alex said, Jokic has struggled. They kind of struggled to maybe integrate some of the depth that was really what made them so good last year. But at the end of the day, they're still 13-5. It feels like they're underachieving, and I think this is a pretty big opportunity for them to log a much-needed win and kind of get this 2-game losing streak turned around.
All right, Suns Pelicans with an over of 235. Alex, can they go over that mark tonight?
They can. I mean, both of these teams are, they're top like 10 offenses. They play at a relatively fast pace. I actually kind of want to lean towards the under here because nothing about these teams like really jumps out at me and implies that they're going to have just a massive scoring night. I just wish there was more pushing me in that direction. So I feel like I'm going to take the under, primarily because I think the number is a little high. The Aaron Baines being out for the Suns, I mean, he's been surprisingly a major force for them, and I don't think their offense will run as smoothly without him there.
Nick, what do you think?
I feel the same way. I'd be inclined to go over. Neither of these teams have been great of late. Of course, Phoenix got off to that really fast start, and they've been fine. They're still hanging around the 7 or 8 spot in the Western Conference, but they've cooled off a bit. And New Orleans, I mean, the talent is there. They've had some injuries, but they're still really deep, at least on paper, and they've struggled as well. But neither of these teams play any defense, and I think not having Aaron Baines, as strange as that sounds, obviously they're without DeAndre Ayton as well, has been an issue. They allowed 128 points the other night to the Orlando Magic, which are one of the worst defenses in the league. They were without their best player in Nick Vucevic. I don't love either of these offenses, but I think it's a spot where both defenses are really vulnerable, and it could be kind of an ugly game where both teams end up scoring a lot of points, if that makes sense.
Karin, 7 of the last 8 home games for the Pelicans have gone under the total points line. Where are you going on this one?
I'm going over, but you can kind of like flip a coin with this because I did like a mental pro-con sheet with this one. And it's like everyone's been saying, like, I could make an argument for under and I could make an argument for over. I just think that you got two teams that can really score and two teams that don't really play defense because people are hurt on both sides. So why not see them score more buckets and go over? That's what pushed me over the edge because I had arguments on both sides and I had to pick one since you guys won't let me pick neither.
Yeah, we do make you make a choice here. All right, Houston and Toronto. James Harden's point total is set at 36.5. Nick, can he go over here?
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, he can't score exactly 36.5 points, so I guess I do have to make a choice.
You do.
You
have to.
I do, yeah. I think he has 110 combined points in his last two games. So if you want to go by recency bias, I guess the numbers suggest that he should go over 36.5. But in his two games prior to these aforementioned scoring eruptions, he was under 36 points. And I do have some faith in the Toronto defense. I know they gave up a lot of points to Miami the other night, but this is a team that even without Kawhi Leonard just really hasn't missed a beat. They have a lot of wings, Pascal Siakam types, Norman Powell types, guys like that. Even if they have to dust off someone like Rondae Hollis-Jefferson or Stanley Johnson, kind of big, long bodies to throw at someone like James Harden. And Kyle Lowry being back in the lineup and not missing a beat either. He played 40-plus minutes in his first game back the other night. Even at his advanced age, still a dogged defender, still somebody that can chase James Harden around. If there's a team that can make life difficult on James Harden, I think it's Toronto. So, maybe Harden proves me wrong, but I'll go under on 36.5.
Karin, over or under, does his hot streak end?
I'm just still stuck on the fact that I totally forgot that Stanley Johnson is still playing professional basketball. Like, I totally forgot about that guy. But I'm taking the over just because my personal rule is to always take the over with James Harden. Like, the over could have been 48 points tonight, and I would took the over just because it's James Harden. And I saw that guy shoot 57 free throws or something crazy it was the other night. He just gets his points. It may not be pretty all the time. I particularly like it because I just think it's just nuts that a guy can score that way every possession, every night. It just literally blows my mind. But the dude's been rolling for the last 4 or 5 years like this. He'll get 37 before he shows up to the arena tonight.
Alex, Karin thinks, Harden's just going to keep rolling. What do you think?
I mean, what Harden's doing is, it's historic. He's one of the greatest offensive players of all time at this point. I do kind of side with Nick here. I think the Raptors are one of the best coached teams in the NBA. I think Nick Nurse is going to be a strong candidate for Coach of the Year. We saw the Raptors. They won the title. They gave the Bucks problems last season in the playoffs. And the Bucks kind of had this one central player doing everything in Giannis. So I think the Raptors are going to do everything they can just to shut down Harden. And to make guys like Westbrook and PJ Tucker and just really whoever else is available, just someone else on the Rockets make plays. So I think I do lean under here, although it like Karin has alluded to, it's really hard to have confidence in taking the under on this.
But see, that's like one of the reasons why I went the over, because you made a great point about Nick Nurse. I think about that Bucks series, right? And you had a guy, Giannis, who struggled with shooting. And then we all think about the boxing one against Golden State. And we know that if you body Steph up, like, he doesn't really want contact. That's what makes Harden so interesting to me, is that, like, the guy really doesn't have a weakness. He can go to the cup, he can take physicality, and we know he can shoot. And if you give him one-on-one, of course he's going to, like, destroy the guy in front of him. So it doesn't matter, like, how great your scheme is or your defenders. That guy has an answer for everything that you can throw at him. That's why I'm always just like, take the over with him.
And that's why he's going to get 37 before he shows up to the arena tonight, Karin. All right, same game on the other side. Yeah, it's going to happen. Same game on the other side. We've mentioned him a couple times. Pascal Siakam's point total is set at 23.5. He only had 15 his last time out, though. So, Karin, do you feel like this is too high?
No, I don't think this is too high. That guy has somehow, like, turned into, like, the face of that franchise, which has kind of been shocking to me, because it's like I've forgotten all about Kyle Lowry. I know he's been dinged up. We talked about him the last time I was on this show, who has been great all year, and just seems like Siakam has kind of come out of nowhere and been like, okay, I'm taking the spot that Kawhi Leonard left behind. So guys who are in that conversation, in that category of players, don't usually have two bad games back to back, and we saw what happened with Miami game. And this is a big time game when Houston comes to town. So I'm expecting him to play well tonight. So I don't think that's too high.
Alex, you want to go over here?
I do. I think this is a good opportunity to buy relatively low on Siakam coming off some bad games. I mean, in the games he plays around 30 minutes, he's averaging almost 19 field goal attempts per game. And when you're talking about a prop bet where the point total is that close to the amount of field goal attempts that the player is taking, I usually feel good about it. Yeah, I think the Raptors are really going to do their best to force a lot of turnovers, get out in transition. It's one thing they do best. And Siakam's just going to stay aggressive. I think, the marquee nature of this game does matter. I mean, Siakam has been in these huge games before, like I alluded to earlier, and I think this, the stage won't bother him at all. I think he'll step up and he can get, it wouldn't surprise him if he went for 30 tonight.
Nick, are you going with the guys here?
Yep, I'm taking the over. I think this is a fairly low number. I mean, Houston struggles still on defense. They're one of those teams that, even as they kind of bounce up and down in terms of defensive rating, they're one of those teams that any single night could allow 135 to any team. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying that's going to happen tonight, but I'm just not confident in this defense putting in the effort that it takes to stop someone like Siakam. I mean, he's kind of a baby Giannis. I think in some ways, maybe a little more versatile on the outside. Obviously not the finisher that Giannis is, but I mean, he's somebody that when he is on the court is going, 100 miles an hour at all times. And if there's one type of player that Houston kind of can struggle to defend, it's those effort type of guys. I think he looks to bounce back after that tough game against Miami in a big way and clears this, I think, fairly easily.
When you said Baby Giannis, all I could think about was Baby Yoda. All right, changing over to our DFS hats. Alex, who is your slate-approved pick for tonight's slate?
I do like Brandon Ingram tonight. I mean, just a guy who's been consistent for, it feels like, all year in a game that does have an inflated total, even though I think it might not go over. But at the same time, like it's 40 DraftKings points every single night. He works for cash, for GPP. I feel confident putting him in every type of lineup.
Nick, slate-approved pick.
I think I'm going to go with Brad Beal, and I know that's not exactly a hot take by any means, but over the last few minutes here, Isaiah Thomas has been ruled out for Washington. We talked earlier about Jordan McRae already being out. Ish Smith just, he plays 25 minutes, but he doesn't do anything. They're already without Thomas Bryant as well. I mean, this is shaping up to be one of the all-time Bradley Beal single-game usage type of outings. So I don't see how you can't be in your lineup now.
That's your captain, Karn, but who's your slate-approved pick?
Well, some breaking news here. I just got a text that James Harden already has 40 points for tonight.
Oh, my God. Wow.
I'm taking it. Yeah, breaking news here. You guys heard it here first.
Incredible stuff. We heard it here first. All right.
37 of them were free throws, though, by the way.
Wow.
I don't know, but it's done.
How does he do it? Incredible. All right. Good stuff as always, guys. NFL Showdown picks are coming up right after Pat Mayo gives us some value Week 14 running backs to consider.
Value guys on this slate. There's not a ton of them. Everyone seems to be pretty reasonably priced or even somewhat overpriced. And before we get to the very top end, if we're just looking at pure value, Devonta Freeman is a fantastic price, and he has a fantastic matchup, especially down Dontari Poe on the Panthers' defensive line. Do you think everyone's going to gravitate towards him? And do you think that's a mistake because he kind of sucks?
Yeah, so, I mean, Devonta Freeman's been in this role all year and hasn't had, I don't think he's had a single big game. So this role, and I mean, Brian Hill was in this role and just totally dusted. So I think this role is not overly fantasy friendly. That said, the Falcons are getting Austin Hooper back. They're getting Julio Jones back. Devonta Freeman, I thought, looked reasonably healthy on Thanksgiving last week. So, yeah, I mean, Devonta Freeman is in play for sure. I think that expecting all of a sudden some ceiling game from Devonta Freeman after this position has not yielded a single ceiling game for 13 weeks is asking a lot. But you're right. I mean, one of the reasons I think Ron Rivera got fired, I mean, he's supposed to be some defensive guru, and they've just been getting absolutely gashed on the ground.
So if we think about the lineup construction as it pertains to running back, it does seem like you'd want to pay up for two, maybe try to find a cheaper flex running back to put in, or do you think it's a week to pay up at running back and then sort of evenly distribute the wealth across the other positions?
Yeah, well, you haven't mentioned Alvin Kamara, and I understand that he's playing the San Francisco 49ers. I think that's in play in the mid-range. And yeah, Christian McCaffrey to me is almost always a priority facing Atlanta. I think that would be no different. But, I there was one week recently where I didn't play Christian McCaffrey. I think it was the week he was playing the Saints. There just wasn't enough value for me to get to Christian McCaffrey. So yeah, I think, roster construction is always going to be fluid relative to the slate. And, we just had like some surprise injury pop up. It's not for the main slate, for Monday night where Eli Manning gets ruled out. Maybe something like that will happen for the main slate, and we'll see, and things will open up.
Yeah, so I think I'll probably end up going with McCaffrey. I'll wait for a status update on Dalvin Cook, but I can see mixing him into it as well, even at low ownership, just to kind of double the field and maybe get lucky with him. Madison, if Cook is out, is obviously a lock in this spot. You mentioned Kamara. I mean, he's $7,000. You're not going to get a better price, and this could just be one of those games where he piles up 10 catches, and then he's most definitely going to be worth it. Is there anyone else from that top end that you can see building around? The one I would think I would go to would be Fournette with Minshew in.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I mean, Minshew's mobility opens up running lanes for Fournette. There's no game script where he can really be out of it, and the Chargers defense reeks.
I think, you've seen why Leonard Fournette has been such a good play on DraftKings is because they're getting trucked like 28-0, and Leonard Fournette's still in the game. And Leonard Fournette's still catching all these checkdowns. Now, I think his pass game usage has been inflated the last 2 weeks because they've been getting beat so bad. I do not think with Gardner Minshew in there, they will get beat so bad by any stretch. I think they have a reasonable chance to win the game against this version of Phillip Rivers. So yeah, I think Leonard Fournette is in play. I think at that same price range, Nick Chubb is in play against the Bengals. But as it sits right now, I would prefer Kamara, I think, to both of those, specifically on full PPR DraftKings.
The moment you've all been waiting for, Showdown picks. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich are back. Guys, need those picks for tonight's Cowboys-Bears Showdown contest. Jeff, who's your captain pick tonight?
I am all over the place with this game. I mean, I don't really know what's going on here. I went with Amari Cooper. First of all, I'll stick with that pick, but I actually like the guy Pierce is going to talk about more. But we'll get to that in a second. I do think Amari Cooper is really interesting in big GPPs. Everyone is going to fade him because of the home road splits. And look, he does have bad road splits. But again, I talked about this earlier in the show. The Bears are down Prince Amukamara. They're talking about moving Buster Screen to the outside here. This is a really good matchup for Amari Cooper. And it's a good matchup for Michael Gallup, too. I'm just I like the attacking with the Dallas pass game in this spot. I really don't think that the Bears have put up any kind of pass rush. The Dallas offensive line is also really strengthened up. They're, top 5 in terms of sacks allowed. So I think Dak Prescott is going to be able to get off here. And I could see Cooper or Gallup going for a big night. I mean, Gallup's probably the better value, but I think for big GPP, Amari Cooper is going to be a lot lower owned than he should be. He's definitely one of the few players in this game capable of going for like 40 points.
Pierce, your pick, which is the pick that Jeff wished he had.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised. It's Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah, it's scary, but look, this is Showdown. You got to play these boomer bust guys. You can't just play cash safe plays. You're not going to make any money that way. And this is, a defense he can score against. 23 or 23rd in pass DVOA for the Cowboys. They're not as good on the road, and the Bears throw the ball a lot. 9th most in passing. They've been passing more recently, and they pass a lot at home. Sure, it's boomer bust, but he allows you to fit in a lot of players like an Amari Cooper in a regular slot.
All right, who are you stacking with him, Pierce?
I'm going to go with Anthony Miller. It's going to feel like chasing for a lot of people because he had the big game on Thanksgiving Day, but he's had 3 really big, or at least 3 good games moving into this week. He's a part of the offense, but what I like is Cowboys struggle against slot receivers. Last week, Cole Beasley over 100 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, Edelman, 8 catches, 90 yards. They gave up big games to Golden Tate. They gave up a good game to Jamison Crowder. Gave up a decent game to Danny Amendola. And Anthony Miller spends about 64% of the time in the slot. I would imagine that he's going to have another big game this week.
Jeff, who you pairing with your captain?
Yeah, it's in a similar vein. Taylor Gabriel's out. I'm going to just go with Tariq Cohen, though. I just like the floor with Cohen and the fact he gets rushing attempts as well. It's the player who's caught at least 4 catches in each of his last 4 games. And look, the Cowboys, Pierce mentioned the slot, they don't guard against the running back position either. They're bottom 10 in terms of receptions allowed to running backs. The Bears have used Cohen, weirdly enough, a lot more as a receiver at home, too. He's got like 12 more catches in 6 home games versus 6 away games. He's also caught both of his touchdowns there, or two of 3 touchdowns on the road, or at home, excuse me. So For whatever reason, he's just been more effective at home. Maybe the Bears offense is a little bit more comfortable there. But it's a really good matchup. I think it's a good matchup for Miller, too. I think you'll see one of these Bears secondary receivers have a big game. I like going.
All right, where can we find some value tonight, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go for like the screaming value play, which is just, the really cheap, push and pray play. I'm going to go with Tavon Austin. You just kind of get the sense here. Again, I mentioned a couple things. It comes down to a depth issue with the Chicago Bears. If they're moving Buster Screen to the outside, I mean, it just means that their slot is going to be undermanned. And I mean, Tavon Austin isn't a player who needs more than a couple touches to go off, right? So he did end up with 5 targets in his last game. Before that, he only had like 2 targets his last 3 games. So it's obviously a complete boomer bust play. But the way the Dallas offense has been going, I wouldn't be shocked if they just dream up a couple more plays for Tavon Austin in this spot. They got to get going. It's not the greatest matchup for their run game. I think you'll see Tavon Austin get 3 or 4 touches. That could be enough just to pay off this minuscule salary. So I kind of like him as a value.
Under
Tavon
30
Austin
seconds,
has
Pierce.
about 5 targets in his entire career. It's probably a little too much. Take the safe route. Go Eddie Pinheiro. Take the kicker. It's always
take the kicker. Never makes field goals. Good one, Pierce. Sure.
Hey, he can hit a 50-plus yarder. They're going to move the ball. They're going to be in position. If you don't want it, then take Dallas's kicker, whoever that is this week. I'm sure it'll be someone different next week. But take the kicker and Showdown. That's the way to go.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. We'll be back tomorrow at 6. See you then.